Good evening. This is Satan's Trilogy, and it is Book 3, Chapter 5, and reading 97. I am the author and the narrator. Sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, there has been a last-minute change in tonight's schedule. Wrestling match with Bo Jackson. Michael Wade paused, and then as the stadium went quiet, he yelled out, "Satan will allow Bo Jackson a chance at the heavyweight title belt tonight." Esther watched the twins stare at each other. It appeared that they were in total confusion, and they seemed alarmed. Esther's eyes opened. She was awake and rested. The dream puzzled her. She climbed out of bed and went to her other bedroom to start her morning routine. A little more than 10 minutes on the computer, and then the morning kata to help keep her sharp. In a little more than 1 hour, Esther had completed preparing breakfast. French toast with a variety of jams. This morning's breakfast would be simple. Esther did not want the twins to be loaded down with a heavy breakfast. Everyone came to the kitchen at the same time. Aunt Brandy was first. It was obvious that Aunt Brandy was not totally awake. And as Esther held out the morning coffee for her, Brandy took the coffee and gave Esther a large smile of happiness. "This is such a wonderful coffee," Aunt Brandy said. Esther smiled. "It is Jamaican coffee. It is the best." Both girls smiled slightly and lightly giggled. Brandy then found her seat and sipped the coffee, waiting for the others to join her. Dave followed the twins into the kitchen. She had awakened first, but had taken her morning shower. Day chose to wear her silk robe for breakfast. The twins seemed only half awake, while Day was obviously totally awake from her shower. Danielle and Tracy were still wearing their matching silk nighties with matching undies. Their nighties were black, and they appeared more gothic than Day. Esther immediately noticed this and said nothing. Day was always sensitive about her appearance and wanted to be viewed as totally gothic. The twins managed to say good morning and little else. Esther handed each a cup of Jamaican coffee as they made their way to a seat at the breakfast table. Day had quickly snatched up an empty cup from the countertop and poured herself a cup of coffee while Esther managed to help the twins take a seat. Breakfast was wonderful, and as everyone finished, the conversation became more alive. "Danielle," said Esther, "had a strange dream, and it worries me." Tracy quickly spoke up. "I did too, and I am worried." Esther quickly reminded the girls that they should not discuss their dreams without the risk of losing them. Esther looked at the twins. "Knowledge is power, and it helps your position in life, so be prepared." Esther couldn't and wouldn't attempt to make her position on the dreams the night before better understood. The twins had some knowledge that gave them an advantage. They needed to use it. The twins had provided a complete block of seating close to the ring, 18 seats for Esther and Day's friends. Aunt Brandy would go with her doctor boyfriend. Mary M. from the nursing home had gratefully accepted a ticket. Esther had given her the seat on her left, and Day would be on Mary's left. Esther had always considered Mary a special friend. Though their paths didn't cross as often as she would like, despite this, Esther knew that Mary M. was a big fan of the road organization of wrestlers and would love to experience up-close seating. After breakfast, Brandy got ready for a day with her doctor friend that now seemed completely dedicated to her. The four girls dressed and took off for the market. Mr. Ho had promised his workers the morning off. Day, Esther, and the twins would help by stocking shelves and filling the various displays. The twins had eagerly agreed to help. They both wanted to meet Mr. Ho and to see how Day and Esther spent some of their time helping their father. It was still very early, but when the four girls walked into the grocery store, Mr. Ho was bagging a large order for a customer. People in the neighborhood appreciated the lengthy hours that the store offered and the convenience it provided. Esther quickly went to her father and kissed his cheek. "Father, we have two friends that want to help this morning," Esther proudly stated. Mr. Ho watched the twins as Esther spoke. "This is Danielle and this is Tracy." Esther introduced each as they came closer. "Father," said Day, "Esther and I have accepted Danielle and Tracy as our big sisters." Day stood silent. Mr. Ho took a moment to respond. "My daughters have never disappointed me, and they understand the nature of people." Mr. Ho smiled and said, "If you are their big sisters, then I now have two more daughters." Mr. Ho moved forward and hugged both Danielle and Tracy and gave each a kiss on the cheek. "It seems our family is growing," said Mr. Ho as he chuckled at himself. The girls spent 4 hours stocking the shelves and filling the fresh refrigerated bins. Danielle and Tracy were fast learners and did very well. They were fascinated by the large assortment of vegetables and fruit that Mr. Ho provided in the store. They had never heard of nearly all of the foods and had no idea how they should be cooked or eaten. A little before noon, the regular stock workers came to work, and the girls were free to go. Returning to Esther's apartment, the twins took the Escalade after changing clothes. They could never let their fans see them in anything but black. They would dress differently for the night's event, but for the sake of appearances, they had to show up at all events wearing black and preferably gothic. Esther and Day changed into some bike-friendly clothes and left for Mary M.'s apartment. It was on the 6th floor of a rather nice apartment complex not far from the nursing home where Aunt Brandy and Mary M. worked. Arriving in the parking lot, the two girls took off their helmets. Day quickly asked, "How much faster is your Ninja than mine?" Esther chuckled. "Not that it matters when riding in the city, but the Ninja ZZR 1400 is over 50 miles per hour faster than the Ninja 650R. When I am riding next to you, I can feel the difference in power between our two bikes," said Day. Esther smiled at Day. "So what do you think?" "Well," said Day, "I like speed." She grinned at Esther. Having a grin of her own on her face, Esther said, "Cousin Jan has a new Ninja ZZR 1400 on special order for you, and it is your favorite non-color black. It's a graduation gift from Aunt Brandy and me. However, You do have to give Cousin Yun this bike." They jumped onto Esther and couldn't thank her enough. "That is such a wonderful gift. Can we go to the racetrack after it arrives? We can have some real fun at the speedway." Esther smiled. "Of course. That's what fast bikes are for." "Let's go give Mary her ticket," said Esther. Walking along the long and narrow sidewalk, Day and Esther discussed her bed and the meaning of the dreams they had when sleeping together, but not discussing any specific dream and what it included. Esther said, "There are a few things that I don't understand in this world. My bed is one of them." Esther laughed and said, "And I give little thought as to why it is what it is." At the apartment entrance, Abe was standing his post as usual and opened the door for the girls. Esther and Dave both thanked him. Mary M. had told Abe to expect Esther and Day. They reached Mary's door and rang the bell. Mary opened the door after a few seconds. "So sorry," said Mary. "I was in the kitchen feeding Tom. That's my cat." Mary smiled at the girls and hugged both as they entered the apartment. Esther quickly entered and found a package on the end table. "Oh, I see my gift arrived, and you waited for me to open it." Esther was beaming in excitement. "Please, Mary, open the gift. I think you will love this." Esther stood by the package and held out a slender mat knife to cut open the box. Mary looked at Esther, chuckled, and grabbed the mat knife and quickly sliced the ends open. Pulling out another box, Mary studied it for a moment and then opened the ends with the knife. Mary looked into the box and as she opened the end and realized that it was a motorcycle helmet. Mary looked at Esther and said, "This is really nice." Mary was lost for words. Esther spoke up. "Mary, you are a very special person. I know this, and I am not willing to accept anything less from you. We are on bikes tonight. Ninjas, as a matter of fact. I want you to ride with me to the show tonight. The helmet is going to thrill you, and when was the last time you were thrilled?" asked Esther. Mary lifted the helmet up and turned it about in her hands, then said, "I haven't been on a bike for," she thought a moment, 18 years. Mary placed the helmet on her head and several lights came on inside. An automated voice system asked her to give her name. Mary was excited at the automation of the helmet and gave her name. "Your voice is now synchronized with this helmet. There is a learning period of several days' use before you can understand the features of your helmet," the voice said. Mary pulled the helmet off. "Wow, what the heck did I just experience?" Esther chuckled. "State-of-the-art technology." Esther smiled, "And it only gets more impressive on a bike." Esther took a moment to study Mary and realized she was in. "You are riding with me. The three of us will be on the same frequency." Mary said, "I am glad I decided to wear slacks." Mary grabbed a billfold, placed it inside her left pocket of her jacket, and said, "I am ready." Esther and Day rode their bikes a bit fast, and they did a lot of communicating while riding. The helmet worn by Mary impressed her with stats on everything around her, from distance coordinates to facial recognition of people they passed on the street, and the sound was clear and precise while totally canceling out the outside sounds. Esther and Day pulled into the lower deck access area meant for the construction and entertainment people and flashed their passes from the twins to gain access. Quickly they pulled up next to the Escalade driven by the twins and parked their bikes. Esther walked up to the Escalade and said, "Let's leave our helmets here and anything else you don't want to carry." Esther popped open the rear hatch and placed her helmet into the car. Mary was quickly impressed that Esther had access to a car inside of the arena, and then placed her helmet into the car, and then quickly left the subject as she heard the W.O.W. Black Gothic Band stop playing. That was a sure sign the evening's entertainment was about to begin. Mary immediately became excited and turned to Esther. It was easy to read her emotions. Esther would have to take Mary immediately to her seat, or she would have a heart attack. Esther said, with a confident smile, "Follow me." She walked quickly to the entry on the far right, followed a long hallway, and then up some stairs. 2 guards stood at the top of the stairs and ignored them. Their job was to check people wanting to go down into the lower level, not coming out of it. Quickly walking forward, Esther led Day and Mary to the center ring and within a dozen feet of the wrestling ring. Esther led the girls to a center aisle where their seats on the end of row 6 awaited them. Day took the 3rd seat and found Riley Grace next to her. Raven was on Riley's left. Riley Grace was excited to see Esther and Day and was yelling hello long before the girls reached the seats. Mary took the 2nd seat and Esther sat on the end. After giving Riley Grace a big hug, waving hello to everyone that she knew, Esther sat on the end seat. John Campbell was sitting behind her and his buddies were next to him. Esther had given John a hug and commented, "Seems you have my back again. I like that." John responded, "No one gets near you, Esther, without my seeing them." Esther smiled and turned back around to watch the different people on the wrestling mat. It was hard to know who they all were, but Esther did recognize the twins on the mat. Satan's manager, Dr. Mann, and the Master of Ceremonies, Michael Wade, along with a few others. The lights suddenly went out, and spotlights from the perimeter of the Colosseum were streaming about, until they finally focused on Michael Wade, Master of Ceremonies. Standing in the center of the wrestling ring, it was like magic. Everyone else that had been in the ring a minute earlier had left, and Michael Wade stood alone to address the fans. I'm going to stop there. And that was reading 97. Hope you enjoyed it. So until next time, be safe and take care. Thank you for listening.